We'll kick off. Bore da, aelodau, croeso I gyfarfod o Ddiwrnod Parc Cenedlaethol. Croeso hefyd unrhyw aelod o'r Prif Seat in Gwylio. Welcome all to the last National Park Authority meeting of the calendar year. Hope everybody's well. As you're aware, we've got the Welsh translation service available today for the first time, which is brilliant news. I would encourage those that want to use it, please. It's important that we do that. And I will kick off. I think that's everything, isn't it? Yes. So I'm going to receive apologies for absence. I know I've got Julie James, Peter Morgan and Tony Wilcox. I don't think there's anybody else, is there? Okay, thank you. To receive any disclosures of interest by members or officers in respect of any items of business. Rosie, please.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you very much. My usual disclosures. I'm an NLW board member and chair of the Protected Areas Committee. I'm also a plant life trustee, which has some relevance in some cases. Both are potentially relevant to report 4223, which is the management plan.
Thank you. Any others? No? Okay, thank you. To confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 15th of November, page 5, I think, on the agenda pack. Hopefully everybody's read them. Everybody happy with them? Rachel, this. Second. Thank you. All those in favour? Against? Any abstentions?
Yeah, I wasn't at the meeting. No.
I wasn't present, Chair, so I'm abstaining.
Yeah, and me abstaining.
Thank you. To note the action log. There we go. Okay. Anybody got any comments on it? Rosie, your hand? Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, one question from me. I don't think it was in the action log per se, but at the minutes of the last meeting, Ray, the independent remuneration panel asked that the matter of the tax element on travel expenses be incorporated in the response. This matter has been raised as an anomaly in response to each of the annual reports of that committee, certainly since I joined, and it'd just be helpful to know that that has indeed been included in the response. Thanks.
Thank you. Fine.
Yes, Chair, I can confirm that I included that within the response.
Thank you. And for your information, Rosie, I also raised it with the chair's meeting with the IRPW as well. So, all right, just to belt and braces. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, okay. So now on to the Rachel. Sorry.
Dwi'n mynd I ofyn cwestiwn yn Gymraeg. Testing. Ie, yr un ar y datganiad llywodraethiant, gwybod o'r Gwanwyn 2024, mae'r dyddiad ar hynny, yn jyst eisiau gofyn beth fydd y broses o ran bwydo mewn I hynny, neu ydych chi eisiau i'r pwyllgor archwilio gwneud rhywbeth fel ac yn y blaen, achos dyn ni wedi colli cwbl o flynyddoedd ble mae'n dod yn ôl ato ni pob blwyddyn a ni wedi anghofio mwy na lai.
I fod yn hollol, dwi wedi meddwl lot am hwnna ar un o bryd. Dyn ni mewn proses o newid yn y maes na, ond fi'n credu beth sy'n bwysig yw bod ni yn dod â fe digon cynnar I gallu cael effaith. So falle be na I wneud yw cynnwys ar agenda pwyllgor archwilio mis Chwefror. So bod ni'n cael trafodaeth arno fe fel la. Yn amlwg mae Catrin Evans wedi ddechrau fel yn pennaeth cyllid nawr, felly mae hwnna'n mynd I bydd yn ddiddorol I weld unrhyw perspektif sydd gyda hi ynddo fe, ond mi'n credu falle gewn ni trafodaeth mwy gyffredinol. Be newn ni wneud yw edrych ar fersiwn flaenorol, cael trafodaeth yna fe, i ni ddatblygu fersiwn newydd, yn ytrach na bod ni'n datblygu fersiwn newydd i chi drafod. Os ydy hwnna'n iawn 'da chi?
Ie, na pam o'n i'n meddwl falle.
Ie.
Falle dwi'n mis Chwefror rhy gynnar i Catrin, ond
Ie,
Ocê,
fyna bydd. Mae'n edrych nôl yn yw e,
odi.
fel felly yn amlwg mae yna elfennau yn y fe, mae rhaid i ni gynnwys. Just fi'n credu be ni moyn neud yw y steil a ffordd dyn ni'n cyflwyno fe.
A dwi'n credu bod aelodau fan hyn wedi dweud o'r blaen bod eisiau cwtogi'r peth. Gwneud e'n...
Dyn ni'n hapus iawn i gyffogi unrhyw beth, fe gwneud y gwir.
Ocê, diolch.
Anybody got any other comments on the action log, please? I'm happy with them. Okay. Good. Okay, thank you. I've just got one, if I may. The cyber security for you, Caroline. I just wondered if PCC had come back to you at all, or to make sure that the same training is equal with Parks and PCC.
So I spoke to somebody in Pembrokeshire County Council Training Department, whose name escapes me now, but I did speak to somebody, and she said that yes, they, obviously you have mandatory training to do with Pembrokeshire County Council in respect of cybersecurity, and with your individual agreement, they are happy to provide me with your training record, so that we could then demonstrate to us that you have completed the training with them, if you don't have some sort of certificate that you can pass on individually. I've also spoken to our IT department, and they are content that if you've completed the training with PCC, that you don't have to do it again here.
Thank you. So do we need to give you authorisation that we're happy for you to receive that information from PCC, basically?
It will probably be most useful.
If just an email through
Just an email through will be fine.
All right, members. Okay.
Rachel, sorry, I was going to ask, can I have a plea that it's wider organisations? Because when I saw that email come through, that doesn't apply to me, but I've done all of this training.
Yes, that's
all in
true.
one place. Would that be okay?
I will have a conversation after the meeting, Susanne.
Because we're doubling up across
Yeah.
loads of
Yeah.
public sector organisations, aren't
Yeah,
we?
we have a chat at sea.
Thank you, diolch.
Thank you. Madeline.
I think probably there is some fairly specific things that are raised in the training, but I mean it is fairly generic. Caroline, just to check that you've got access to the information that says we've completed it, or do we need to disclose to you as well, to confirm? How does it work for?
So I spoke to Barbara in our HR department, and she says that Elms shows that Madeline, Julie, Rosie and Michelle have accessed the system.
But not necessarily. I'm sure we all have.
I'm sure,
I have. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
So it should be able to tell us that you've done the course. That's the way it should work. So I will follow up and we work that one out. But yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the action log then, please? Otherwise I'll move on. No? Good. Okay, thank you. Right, my chair's announcements. I did forget to say at the beginning, it's fairly short agenda. I'm hoping that we'll be finished mid-morning, but if we're still going, I suggest a quick break at 11:30. But if we're looking to be going to be far off finishing, I'd like to push on through. So, but of course, if you want a comfort break, please just let me know. Chair's announcements. First, I would like to offer our condolences to Councillor Michelle Wiggins and also to Dr. Simon Hancock. Unfortunately, members of their close family have passed away recently, so our condolences to you both.
Yes.
What have we done? Quite a few things. The first one is our month's regular meeting with Julie James. It usually is about an hour and a half, but it ended up being about half an hour, so it was quite rushed because she had other things to do. We discussed climate change. She's the climate change minister, for those who don't know, and we have that meeting with Banai Bwlliniog and Eryri. We discussed the funding settlement and how there were sort of difficult times financially ahead. And I think we should know probably mid-morning, might we?
We know now.
Oh,
Dyn ni.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we leave that there, or do we?
Okay, well,
Go on.
os na I weithio chi. Yn ôl y disgwyl, oedd e'n yr un gyllideb ar llynedd, yr un swm ar llynedd, dyna beth o'n i'n disgwyl. Oedd Julie James ychydig yn llai sicr yn cyfarfod ni, a byddai'n gallu dala lan am hwnna. Felly, dyna beth ni wedi bod yn gynllunio, newn ni bigo fel lan yn y gweithdy ar ôl y cyfarfod.
Diolch. Thank you. That's great. I mean, she did say it was all looking rather bleak, didn't she? So, the initial publication of yesterday's budget didn't look too good. We also talked about visitor levy actually, and that was quite interesting in that she was having discussions were being had on whether some of those funds could be hypothecated to national parks. Don't know how real that or realistic that is, but that may have a bearing. She was quite keen to progress that, I think, wasn't she? I'm sure please and see for that. I was very pleased to be invited to attend the Pembrokeshire NFU dinner at Craiglas. A lovely evening with all the great and good in farming, something that's close to my heart. We had a very good speech from Councillor John Davis actually, and it was about the importance of producing local food and succession actually, and also the sustainable farming scheme. I also attended on behalf of Parks the Spotlight Awards at Pembrokeshire College, and that celebrates outstanding achievements by the county's young people. And I presented the Eco Champion Award to, I can't remember their names, apologies, but they had recycled, upcycled, and any other that you could think of. So it was a lovely evening. Also attended the CJC, who I know that I'm the officer and you're the chair. We don't have to, Parks doesn't have to provide any more funding for the next financial year. They've got quite a substantial amount of unspent reserves. The main items on the agenda were Audit Wales report on the CJC's priorities for the corporate plan 24-25 and the Welsh language standard. That was it for me. But I've got a couple of congratulations to, no, just one actually. Congratulations to Castle Hentless on being awarded the Sanford Award for its education programme. I think it's for the 5th time actually. I did a little bit of reading because I wasn't sure what it was. And we have Owen Edwards, the manager at Castle Hentless, to say a few words about it. So over to you, please, Owen, and very many congratulations.
Diolch, thank you. Is it okay if I do it in Welsh? There you go. Wel, ie, siwmai, Owen Edwards yma, rheolwr Castell Henllys yn Gogledd Sir. Mae'n bleser cael gwneud hwn yn Gymraeg a siarad â chi heddi. So, fel glywech chi, dwi'n ma siarad â'r Wobr Sanford. Gaeth ei greu yn 1975, a ie, y 5 tro i ni ennill yw hwn. So mae'r Wobr, na beth nhw'n gwneud o amgylch safleoedd hanesyddol yn y Deyrnas Unedig, a pigo mas pwy maen nhw'n teimlo sy'n rhoi'r cynnig addysg gorau. So rhai o'r pwyntiau maen nhw'n wneud wrth bod nhw'n dod mas i weld y safleoedd yw neud yn siŵr bod y rhaglen dysgu'n cael ei dosbarthu mewn ffordd sy'n ysbrydoli ymwelwyr, a bod y gwybodaeth sy'n cael ei siario yn ffordd yn dangos ein etifeddiaeth lleol ac genedlaethol. Yn ogystal â hyn, maen nhw moyn bod y rhaglen yn cael ei ddaddasu i pob un sy'n dod i ymweld, so gallai un grŵp wneud rhywbeth i un lefel, a falle byddai'r grŵp bach mwy advanced yn dod wythnos ar ôl ni, a mae rhaid cadw pob yn hapus. Hefyd, fel rhan o'r asesiad, eithon nhw mas yn ganol haf weddi. Na, just cyn yr haf, sori. a o'n nhw dan i trwy dydd, so o'n nhw'n ddrylwy iawn. So dwi wedi cael dyfyniad bach wrthyn nhw. Mae fe'n Saesneg, ond na i weid wrthoch chi be wedd nawr. So Castell Henllys is a jewel of the Pembrokeshire Coast National Park, with a team of dedicated staff who are passionate about sharing their knowledge and love of Iron Age Britain and Romano-British history. Schools who encounter this unforgettable site are far richer for the experience. So, fel chi'n gweld, mae'r hwnna'n comment eitha neis. A dwi yn bersonol yn browd iawn o fod yn rhan o Castell Henllys, a dwi wedi bod yn gweithio yma ers sawl blwyddyn nawr a gweithio gyda'r ysgolion. A mae'r adborth ni'n cael yn wych. A hyd yn oed yn yr haf, ni'n cael pobl yn galw mewn i'r safle gyda'i plant nhw. A maen nhw'n gweud, des i ma byti 20 o flynyddoedd yn ôl gyda'r ysgol, a dwi'n mynd yn ôl am plentyn i cael yr un profiad. A dwi'n meddwl bod hwnna'n wych. So gobeithio mewn 20 blwyddyn bydd y plant oedd ma wythnos diwetha yn dod mewn â'u plant nhw i ymweld â Castell Henllys. So, ie, na gyd o da fi. Diolch yn fawr am wrando. Unrhyw gwestiynau neu sylwadau, croeso i chi ofyn nhw. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, Owen. Thank you very much, and please pass on our thanks and congratulations from all of us here to all of you and the team at Castell Henllys. Has anybody got any questions they might like to ask? So,
I just want to make a general point really about the last comment that was made about, bringing your children, and that is the power of these places. It becomes a big punctuation in our childhoods. For me, it was going to the Hir camp in Rannog, and that then becomes something that we're all connected to. And so it's so heartening to hear that that's being appreciated. And I take my kids there, and I've been on courses there myself. It's an absolutely brilliant place, and all power to you, Owen, and well done.
Yeah. Diolch, thank you.
Councillor Mike Williams, Mike James, please. Sorry.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Llongyfarchiadau mawr i chi, Owen. Mae'n pleser mawr i glywed y clod i chi wedi gael. Mae'n ffantastig, mae rhaid i weid. Fel cynghorydd yr ardal, falle gallech chi roed eich e-bost yn y chat i fi, please. A falle mi gai siams i ddod lawr i siarad â chi a llongyfarch y staff i gyd, os mae hwnna'n iawn.
Ie, dim problem, na i wneud ni.
Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd, thank you.
Diolch. Question. Lovely. Thank you very much, Owen, and keep up the good work.
Yeah.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you.
The other thing I'd like to ask is, Sarah Hodson and Gwyn Jones attended the Europark conference back in October, but we didn't have the opportunity to have a bit of a brief presentation last time. It was the 50th anniversary of the Europark Federation, so quite an important one. It was in the Netherlands. And I think the theme was tribute to our landscape where people and nature meet in harmony. So I think you're going to do a brief presentation.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
questions. You can do it in Welsh.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Wel, fel y glwsach chi, Sarah fi, o'n i'n gololi i fynd i'r cynnig yma. A mae naddedd Ewropa wedi bod yn cael ei gynnal yn flynyddol. Ond mi nawn ni dal i fyny efo'r lluniau rwan.
Impressive PowerPoint.
Can you move closer to the microphone? With
Move the microphone closer, please.
sorry, did I wrong way round. Got me there.
No. O'n i blaen, ie. O'n i barhau ymlaen. Wel, blwyddyn yma, fe ddoth 470 o bobl at ei gilydd i'r gynhadledd Europark. Ac oedd yn brofiad reit wefreiddiol, dydy gwir, i gyfarfod â gymaint o bobl o wahanol parciau cenedlaethol ar draws bob gwlad yn Ewrop. A rei ohonyn nhw yn dod bellach draw. Oedd yna rei yn dod o Awstralia ac o Canada. Ti'n mynd yn ôl rhan un arall? Ia, yn symud ymlaen. Fel ddedodd cadeirydd gyna, gwerodd yr gynhadledd yma rhyw wythnos allan yn bywyd ni i fyw yn lle o'r enw Leeuwarden, dinas o 123 o filoedd o bobl, a hwn oedd prif ddinas talaith gogledd orllewinol cyn bod nhw wedi creu yr iseldiroedd o Leeuwarden yn le bwysig iawn. Ymlaen â ni, oedd llawer o'r gynhadledd fel hyn yn cael ei gynnal mewn un stafell anferth mewn gwesty modern, ac heblaw am wrando ar siaradwyr, mi oedd yna lot o rannu i fyny i fod yn weithdai, ac oedd pawb, bob un o'r pobl fel ni oedd yno, cael dewis pa weithdy oeddech chi'n mynd iddo fo yn ôl y pwnc, ynde. A be oedd y ddiddorol oedd bod yna 70 allan o'r 470 ar ei fynd i'r gynhadledd yn bobl dan 30 oed sydd yn argoeli dda ar gyfer y dyfodol. Ac oedd un aelod o'r cyngor Europac, neu cyngor yr ifanc Europac, o'r enw Liliana o Sir Benfro. A mi ddangosodd hi ffilm am Sir Benfro i'r gynhadledd gyfan. A bob tro oedd hi'n siarad, oedd hi'n ofnadwy o llyfn yn ei chyflwyniad, rhywun ar gyfer y dyfodol, sy'n ei ddweud. Oedd yn gynhadledd oedd cael ei drefnu dda iawn, ond lot o bethau reit fyd yn ffactorau yna fo, bethau oedd nhw'n gynnig i ni. A yna chydig ffrin iawn o syndod fod nhw'n dweud, na falle nhw'n fforddio cael cynhadledd efo gymaint o bobl yna fo, ac na yn y blwyddyn nesaf bydda yna ddim cynhadledd, ond bydda nhw'n disgwyl i wledydd lleol yna digwyddiadau mwy perthnasol iddyn nhw hunan. Dyna beth nhw'n disgwyl allan o 2024. Mi oedd y gynhadledd wedyn yn golygu bod ni'n cael mynd ar teithiau maes, a o Leeuwarden sydd yn y cylch bach coch yn y gogledd, oedd rhywun yn gallu trafeilio i lan ar môr, sef Môr y Gogledd, ac ar draws, fel welwch chi fan cw, mae yna lein goch A47. A hwnna di argae sydd wedi cael ei adeiladu ar draws y Cilfor oedd y fanna. A oedd ffosydd fel hyn yn rhan annatod o unrhyw daith yno. Oedd yn ddiddorol gweld sydd o'n nhw'n yn ymosod ar y broblem o gael gormod o ddŵr a tir sydd yn isel ofnadwy. A'r ateb oedd, weithio reit ffyrnig, fel welwch chi'r ffos yma, oedd yna ffos neu gamlas wrth ochr bob ffordd oedd ni'n teithio ar ei hyd efo. Heblaw am hynny, mae yna lun yn y llun nesaf, fe welwch chi, fod y tir yn edrych yn isel iawn, a dyma chi ffos arall i gwedid y dŵr gormodol sydd yna. Ar y dde, fe welwch chi fel sy'r tir yn codi fyny. A beth yw hwnna ydy y wal fôr sydd yn cadw'r môr gogledd rhag fynd dros y tir yn rhan yma o'r byd. A mae'r ffos ar y dde yna o leia 30 troedfedd o uchder, anferth o peirianwaith mawr. Ac oedd yr darn bach yna, jyst yn un darn allan o 20 milltir o adeiladedd fel yna, sydd yn cadw'r môr allan. Ac os chi'n dringo fyny i ben y boncen yn y fanna, fel y dweud ni, dyna'r olygfa, achos da ni'n gallu gweld y Môr y Gogledd ar y chwith, a dim yn tywod ydy hwn, ond concrit sydd wedi adeiladu dros milltir ar ôl milltir i cadw y dŵr allan. Felly byddwn ni'n meddwl am broblemau efo llifogydd, rhaid ni feddwl hefyd pa mor ddewr a pa mor drylwyr mae'r gwledydd eraill yn gallu bod. Ar llaw arall, mi wedi cwerid yr opsiwn o fynd i ymweld ar tiroedd yna, oedd Sarah wedi mynd i edrych ar rhywbeth mor fel a hwn, sef dyma'r Môr y Gogledd yn taro'r tir. So Sarah, na i roi dros blwyddyn draw i chi i gymeryd gweddill o'r cyflwyniad.
Thank you, Gwyn. We're just going to swap PowerPoints for a moment. The takeaway for me was the aim of the conference, which was to create a greener, sustainable and climate resilient Europe. Quite a high ambition for a one-week conference, I'm sure you can imagine. What's really extraordinary when you go to this area of Europe is the way in which they manage water continuously. Most of the country is effectively man-made, and it's all about the management of floodwater. The engineering is completely overwhelming and extraordinary, and it also made me feel a little bit scared. So when you go to Holland, this is what I expect. I took a couple of shots just to familiarise people. This one, so we certainly saw the sites that we expected to see in this charming town, which historically was of greater significance to Amsterdam. And a little bit like when people say to us, "Are you from England?" And we say, "Excuse me." These people are not from Holland, they're from Friesland, with their own language, their own culture, and a very proud history. And they feel that their capital is a little bit ignored compared to Amsterdam, which is really interesting. I found that, again, these are the familiar sites that we would expect on such a trip. What you don't expect is to see this extraordinary leaning tower, not of Pisa, but in fact a church that's been built on reclaimed land and is gradually leaning over. But we were promised that wasn't going to fall over while we were there. And so my field trip was to the Wadden coast in Groningen. The Wadden Sea is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and the largest tidal mudflat system in the world. And the trip was mud walking. It's a little bit like bog snorkeling. Don't wear wellies, just wear old clothes that you don't mind throwing away at the end of the day. And off we went. No insurance forms were required. No risk assessment was offered. It'll be exciting and adventurous. Well, that was me. I signed up for it. Any parent knows in Pembrokeshire that one of the first rules you teach your children is whatever you do, never walk on the mud. So I threw all my rules away and found myself in hundreds of acres of, anyone recognise that plant? Sunflower. Yeah, it goes on and on and on. These two gentlemen were the leaders of our workshop, and as you can see, they came fully equipped with all health and safety equipment. And they explained to us that we were now walking on the seabed, and it was strictly timed because the tide comes in. And the tide can come in behind you. We're used to the dangers of a tide here. This was of an extraordinary scale, and I could feel my adrenaline starting to pump. And I realised that maybe this was going to be a little bit like the mountain bike trip that I did on the last conference. What was extraordinary about this landscape was that it was created with these, I don't know what the official word is.
Groins.
Groins, thank you. Trying to remember. The thought of being out in the freezing cold on the mud flats, building these with trees that had been brought from very far away was absolutely extraordinary. And yeah, really awe-inspiring. It made me feel a little bit emotional, actually. You really think it's the blood, sweat and tears stuff that was going on here to create this land in what in effect is a huge sea. And it made me think a little bit of the future, you know, where a hill or a mountain is just a few meters above the sea level, and that's all it takes. So it made me think a lot. And here you can see the remnants of the old ones and the new ones being maintained. This was me trying to hand shoot a panoramic picture. It just went on and on and on. And the sea, you could see about 2 kilometers away. And we kept walking until we got to the sea. I'm back.
This is the mud walking experience where you will get possibly up to your knees in mud. Not only did you walk across the flats, but to get off this landscape, you had to walk through the gullies. There was no other way out. It was go through the gullies or stay there and drown. Luckily, we had full health and safety equipment.
Oh, lovely.
I have actually never been so scared in all my life, and I had to keep telling myself that I was with a group of people and everything was going to be okay. I did have my hand held on numerous occasions, and I did manage to get through that gully. These ladies were not quite so lucky, and they did end up to their shoulders in mud, and we had to create. I eventually had to put my phone away because I was afraid I was going to lose it. So I put it in my deepest pocket, and we all had to create a human chain to pull them out. Come to Friesland and be a part of making a climate resilient Europe. Well, I certainly had the experience of what it means to deal with floodplain. Absolutely extraordinary. I want to bring it back to the conference centre now. The youth core team were really brilliant. There were 30 young people at the event who did a lot of trips themselves, and they also played a key role within the conference. And as Gwyn has mentioned, our lovely Liliana was one of the speakers there. Wales in particular had a very high profile within this conference, which I found really extraordinary, given that we had so many national parks from all over the world represented there. A lot of the stuff that we do was talked about, but what I wanted to do when I was there was just learn from the other parks. And what I gathered was that there are different cultures around parks. So some parks are about keeping the people out, very much about protecting and stay away, whereas other parks were about being part of it. Yeah, and I think there was a lot of heart in the conference, and the youth groups certainly were able to express that. I think there was a bit of frustration from the youth as well, because they feel really scared when it comes to climate change. There's a lot of anxiety in the room. And one of the young people had written this: I hope in the future nature will be protected and healthy. I hope humans learn to live together with nature, not in it. I had certainly got in it on my field trip, but I was left with a slight feeling of unease. This is a nation that is built literally below sea level, building higher walls, trying to manage all this water. The farmers are dealing with salination, you know, with the loss of soil and all of those things. Obviously, these man-made structures and the huge mudflats have allowed an environment for wading birds and a lot of biodiversity. But at the end of the day, it's a country of people living there. The beaches were all man-made and made of concrete. And it made me feel a little bit anxious. It really did. So a very thought-provoking conference, and I found it very emotional to be there. Thank you.
Diolch there, diolch, and thank you. Sounds like you had a whale of a time, and I think scary some of those pictures, but and I think very interesting. So perhaps members might want to have a discussion when we break for lunch on before the business seminar, if we've got anything that they want to ask. But thank you. Been really, really useful. Sorry, Steve.
Just for members to understand, the legacy of the people that knew how to do that was employed on the Calder estate, what was historically known as Brown Slade Lake, which is now Castlemartin Course. And there's 500 acres, well, probably more than that, 900 acres. I'm talking about the bit that I actually was a custodian of for a number of years. But the Gupton Farm, and it's a triple air side, marsh harriers, all sorts of things. And it was used by the farms to grow the withies, the reeds. And they'd use that because there was a crop growing area out on the range, and they used the withies to act as a weather protection from the bottom of the rick, and they then used it to thatch the top because they didn't know when the thrashing machine was going to come round. So that's something, that's a living thing. That's 240 years old. John Myhouse. John Myhouse's great grandfather did that, employed Dutch engineers to do exactly that, all done by hand.
Yes.
No hydraulics. Fantastic. That's a legacy we have within the national park.
Nice tie-in, thank you, thank you for that information.
I'll just add a quick point. Oedd y cynhadledd yn ddiddorol iawn, a oedden ni'n fel aelodau dau yn wedi cael mynd iddo fo. Yr unig deimlad o gen i oedd bydda yna fwy o fydd i aelodau o'r staff i fynd yno yn hytrach na ni. Ac dwi'n meddwl os fydd yna gynadleddau llai yn cael eu cynnal ym Mhrydain, oedden ni gysidro ai aelodau'r staff neu aelodau o'r pwyllgor fel y fod yno.
Yeah.
I think we can, there's hopefully you can bring that here, and then we can encourage our officers to, carry out those things. I don't know, but talk for the future.
On a light note, we've got a conference coming up, and I think we should do something on our estuaries. I can really see mud walking, taking off.
Well, I've done it. Ship it to the farm, to my place a long time ago, up to my knees. I didn't bother with shoes or anything. I did it barefoot. Wonderful. But the tide was out. What's the picture?
You just need to risk assess Taylor's presence at any future conference.
We don't need to do that. Okay, right. I'm mindful that we're moving away from the agenda a little bit now. Right, thank you, but we'll perhaps have a chat midway. Thank you for all of that. That's the completion of my chair's announcement. I'd like to go on to item 6, which is on page, what's that? 14. Receive the report of the meeting of the Development Management Committee, that's dealt with. To consider the report of the meeting of the Operational Review Committee held on the 27th of September. Anybody got any comments on that? Rosie, please, as chair.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the operational review, I just wanted to unusually take the opportunity to flag to the authority the item on pods, the Pembrokeshire Outdoor Schools, which it highlights remarkable work being done. And as Councillor Jordan picked up at the time, really quite a surprising lack of sort of recognition and involvement by PCC. And it is also of concern because currently the staff funding is due to come to an end in March. So it is a fragile activity and it draws on an exceptional individual and exceptional capability. So I just wanted to flag that particularly unusually, Chair. Thank you.
Anybody else got any comments on that before we move on? Oh, Steve?
Well, I support Rosie on this outdoor learning. It's a fantastic thing which should be supported for the future wholesale, because to have young people who are allowed to see what goes on and interact at an early stage, especially those from urban communities, it's a massive uplift. And I'd be sad to see Brian not support it going forward.
Yeah.
Well done there.
Yeah.
Well, and Tom Bean as well.
Yeah. Thank you. If there's nothing further on that one, I'll move on to the Youth Committee. Any comment on that? I think we had in the action log, there were 18 members, so I can't remember who asked that previously, but that information's there. Rosie, please.
Thanks. Just one quick comment. I thought it was great to see the prospects for the joint residential with Banai Youth Committee. I thought, again, collaboration is very much what it's all about, and it gives particularly the youth who don't have the opportunities that we necessarily have as members. So I thought it was much to be welcomed. Thank you.
You speak further, and I'll move on to the substantive motion items on the agenda. Okay, so we'll go to report number 4223, which is on page 23 of your pack. The National Park Management Plan Review. Seek members' input to and approval for the outline programme to review the National Park Management Plan. And I think I have Michelle Reynolds. Welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Yeah,
Sorry, I should have said you're the management plan and marine officer.
yes, thank you. Yeah, this is just to sort of seek members' views on and hopefully approval for the draft programme, which is in your report. By way of context, I thought I'd just do a short introduction of who, what, why, when of the current plan and the one that will replace this. Thank you, Caroline. Yeah, so the current plan is for 2020 to 2024. So we're working next year to replace it. So we have one seamlessly in place for 2025. Where does the management plan come from? Like so many things, it comes from the Environment Act 1995, which gives us our park purposes, our duty in pursuit of the purposes, the duty of other relevant authorities to have regard for our purposes, the Sanford principle, which asserts the sort of primacy of the first of the purposes if there's a case of irreconcilable conflict with the second. And then the management plan is lodged in section 66, the requirement on us as an authority to produce one. What is it and what does it do? It's a means, I guess, of engaging with our stakeholders and our delivery partners. It's a place where we can communicate what the special qualities of the national park are, and the state of the park as we currently see it, our impacts on the state of the park, and the policies which we are laying out for ourselves and for other partners to follow. So in doing that, it's a partnership plan, which is coordinating effort. It's a plan for the park area, not just for the park authority. And I think it provides a sort of binding surface, if you like, a sort of adhesive place where our other plans, our corporate plan, for example, can dock onto the bottom of it, as it were. And then we have this seamless link, hopefully from national park purposes to any work on the ground, or indeed vice versa. And in that, it can be helpful in when we're trying to seek resources externally in terms of funding bids. We can tie them back to park purposes. There is guidance on how to produce a management plan. It was originally provided by the then Countryside Council of Wales in 2007. Since then, there have been a few updates to that 2007 guidance, which ecosystem conservation in 2014, and then a sort of a statement on the importance of management plans in terms of natural resource objectives. We were due to have an update this year on climate and nature emergencies, but that's fallen by the wayside because NRW is now going to review and reissue new guidance, which I think is, is a good thing. 2007 is quite a long time ago now, even though I think the guidance worked very well and the updates were very useful. So we will have new guidance. Since that report was written, actually, I've learned that LUC have been appointed, land use consultants have been appointed, and they will be producing the guidance in collaboration with NRW. And there are a series of meetings planned early next year, of which we will be a part. There's also draft guidance just recently come out for protected landscapes in England, which isn't of direct relevance, but is useful sort of context really to what we might expect to require here. The management plan is accompanied by a number of statutory assessments, the equality impact assessment, which includes socio-economic duty assessments, habitat regulations assessment for special protection areas and special areas of conservation, the formerly sort of European sites, which is now part of the UK national network, as it's called, sustainability appraisal, which will incorporate strategic environmental assessment, and a Welsh language assessment. I thought I'd just do a quick snapshot of the current plan, just to sort of remind ourselves of where it is. It has 5 goals, which are these. They are orientated to the Environment Wales Act and the Wellbeing Wales Act sort of outcomes. but they also completely coincide with national park purposes, which is after all what they have to do, if nothing else. So we've got those 5 goals, which are accompanied by 12 policies. And the way that we come up with those 12 is to look at the key sort of factors affecting the challenges or the opportunities, if you like, the state of the park. So those 12 policies are articulated via a number of impacts, which are, if you like, the sort of the quantitative and qualitative descriptors of what that policy means. You know, a policy can sort of say anything, can't it? But if we have impacts, then we have a way of gearing our authority work programme and hopefully influencing programmes of others. And of course, that then feeds into the corporate plan, which reports on the actions that we take in order to achieve management plan goals and outcomes, as well as other things that aren't necessarily contained in the management plan, which are nevertheless requirements on the authority. So we also have a state of the park element, which is the evidence base, if you like, for our statements about the state of the park. Done that slide. Most of this, all of it, really has been influenced by other people, our stakeholders and partners. These are the sort of special qualities of the national park, which have come from people's view. They come from landscape character assessments. This is what we've got at the moment. We would like to lead off consultation next year with a sort of exercise on special qualities as well, which is the proposal for the first of the management plan workshops that we have in the diary as well. These are some of just a handful of the sort of opportunities and challenges which people said they thought were affecting the state of the park or the special qualities that they recognised. And it's quite a useful exercise, I think, to ask people what they think is special about the park, and then what they think the issues are affecting those, and then what they think the solutions might be. It's quite, you know, they can think about a particular site, or they can think at a bigger scale, whatever they're comfortable with. And there's a lot of sort of passion in what people come up with. So these are the policies. I won't go through them, but there's 12. And these are some of the impact type of areas. There are many more than this, actually. This was all you could fit on a kind of Wordle, but there are many more impacts in the management plan. And these are some of the sort of keywords that you might find in there. So it's just to sort of take an impression of, really. This is the last slide. On there is the timeline which you have in your report. It would make a pretty nasty looking Gantt chart, particularly around spring, but I think it's doable. But you know, the important thing, I think, is quality as well. So we may have to look at the schedule as we're going through it. And I guess the idea of at the end of this, as we've tried to do previously, is to make this not a sort of a thing that happens on a 5-year cadence. It's more of an ongoing conversation in the between time. So it's not a big upset, and there's no surprises. You know, we're in touch with people through everything we do on the ground, and the plan can be sort of adaptive and innovate as we go through it. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you very much for that. And if you've got any questions through you, Chair, be very happy to try and respond.
I was, when I read this, actually, I was slightly concerned about the timescales. It was a bit tight, but I've been assured that there may be a bit of flexibility built in there. So that's helpful. But thank you very much for your presentation. Madeline.
Jill, thank you very much, Michelle. And it is really important that we stick to this timeline. I think it's critical for us, but I think it gives it impetus that we need. The issue always is taking people with us, and I think the way you've explained it there, at having the stakeholders help in fact drive the assessment, the challenges and also the solutions is absolutely perfect, because as was highlighted, it is a plan for the park, not a plan for the authority, and then the authority plans will kick into that. So I'm really happy with that, although I appreciate it's been really hard work, and we'll be doing a bit of input, but obviously the team will be doing the really hard graft. So good luck to you in that. Just as a very minor typo in our report, at the top of page 27 of 57, it says point 10 that the publication is November, December 25, and of course it's 24. It is all in this year, so we don't give you a year then to sit back and actually, you know, and you know, clearly that is time, but I think it's not only vital to meet our obligations, but I think it will focus the mind very much. But good luck with all of that work.
Thank you very much. That typo wasn't unintentional.
Yes, exactly. Very wishful. Chair, I'm happy to propose if
Thank you.
After discussion.
Thank you. Rosie, please.
Thanks, and I'm certainly happy to second it. Can I just say thank you to Michelle for a very clearly presented plan. You know, with something so complex to be so neatly encapsulated is really helpful. It was, I thought, particularly good to read in the report the range of involvement mechanisms proposed in the plan, but in addition to all those previously used, using an online consultation site to extend the reach and involvement perhaps a bit further. And perhaps in that context too, I could flag and suggest to officers, although I suspect Michelle's well all over this, that NRW recently ran a Natur Ani project, which conducted a sort of Wales-wide conversation on what people want to see in terms of nature and landscape, and did some very wide-ranging engagement activities, including through Portal, but also community and youth and a wider diversity. So if you wanted to be put in touch with that team directly, happy to do so. But I just think it's you know, useful to kind of have a reference point. And then just one simple question: are all the NPMBs for the Welsh National Parks synchronised, or are they at different times?
No, they're not. They've never really been synchronised except by accident, like a Elisha beacon. But they might be useful if they were, and perhaps if the I'm just guessing here, but if the guidance comes out with something markedly different, that might be a prompt for us to review, you know, at the same time when that guidance is adopted. But no, at the moment they are not coincident.
It sort of seems to me that there would be some sense in them being kind of in step with each other, but you know, quite how we feed into that, I don't know, Chair. Anyway, I'm very happy, as I said, to second this.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's really important that we take the people of Pembrokeshire with us on the journey, and the engagement is going to be key. So, you know, that the process has got to happen as quickly as possible within the timeframes. But I think that's the thing that we must include and you know, promote. So, any other questions? I want to. Oh, Rachel.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. It's not my area of expertise, so you'll be glad to know I won't have much to say. Just a few things more, having worked a lot with consultations and policies and plans, I suppose. So when you said, and I agree, you know, we need to ask people about the special qualities first of the park, I was also just thinking a note of caution. So thinking, what could come out of that? What would happen if they come out with something very different? Yeah, so just a pure question you haven't got to answer in a way, but how do we handle that? What are the expectations of that? And therefore, what are the implications if we did have something really quite out there? And have the ripple effect on everything we do. The other reassuring thing, but how do we bring it together? It's not just a land-based piece. So I could see on your Wordles, they call Wordles, you know, the marine is coming out much more. So, you know, I just want to emphasize that. We talk about that a lot. So it's land and marine for me, and we are coastal parks. So I'd really like to see that more. I think it's the first opportunity in a long time we've had to really redress that balance. And the other one for me, like Di just touched on, is the people, the passion, the place. That was coming up there for me. And there's three. So it's the land, it's the marine, and the people. And I think that's one of our big qualities here. You said about passion. So yeah, can we get in that sense of place that I keep going on about? But again, we've got some key national documents we didn't have last time around on sense of place that we can hook into certain, TAM 20 in the Welsh language, sense of place, and there are others. So I think that'd be really useful for us because it really does help us describe Pembrokeshire coast. We've got a package of things that I say we didn't have before. On the Welsh language assessment stuff, that paragraph in your paper made me a little bit nervous. I thought I understood what you were saying about we must make a conscious effort, I think was you were quoting from a review, but I was going to say there's a legal imperative. It's a must first, but I think I know what you were saying. There's a recent review, and just to say that I'm here to help if you want any help on that side. It's an area it's really difficult to do in reality. So if I can help anyway, please let me know. And then on a practical sense, the timings, I did wonder, controversially maybe, but is it a 12-week consultation that's needed if we're doing so much engagement and consultations throughout the year and online? So just think about your timetable and the practicalities of it, and having done it myself, you're actually doing consultation and engagement in a much wider sense than that 12-week one. So there might be some room. It depends what it says in your actual policy on it, but usually it says up to 12 weeks. So there's a bit of wiggle room in there. And I'm just going to say the bigger risk for me was if guidance changes, which you just touched on in 2024. I was thinking, that's interesting. Just as we're out in public consultation, we get some new guidance. So do we know that much is going to change? Is it significant or is it likely to be similar? That would be my bigger risk question, that guidance.
Thank you. We don't know about the guidance yet, but we will be involved from the inside, so hopefully we can influence it. I'm confident because NRW and LUC are sort of collaborating on it, that it will make, it will make good sense and it will be, nothing but help to us, really. Sorry, on your other points, thank you. I'm sort of working backwards here, really. That's a great point about the 12 weeks. That sort of applies for some of our other statutory plans, but there, as yet, there isn't. Yeah, we may not have to. We may not have to go for the full 12 weeks on that. So I'll certainly look at that. Thank you very much again for your offer on the Welsh language assessment. The conscientious effort, I think, is. I put it in inverted commas and I included it because I think it has a legal definition now against which we can be judged. So I think it'd be useful to, to sort of explore that further. The special qualities, that was the other one I was going to reply to. That's an excellent question. I guess, you as authority members will be the ultimate arbiters of what goes through. But there's something else, because we had a bit of a discussion about this amongst officers a couple of weeks ago, and what happens if perhaps a modern feature of electrical infrastructure or something is deemed to be a special quality. Where do you go with that if somebody likes a cell phone tower or whatever? The special qualities are only referred to in the second purpose. So, and it's enjoyment and understanding of special qualities by the public. So that still doesn't overturn the first purpose, if you see what I mean. I mean, it's sort of, arguing a fine point perhaps, but that would be my reading of it. The special qualities may or may not have a one-to-one kind of match with the natural beauty, landscape, cultural heritage, etc. that's mentioned in the first purpose. But I wouldn't want to try that in a court of law.
Yeah, it's one of those careful what you wish for, isn't it? You ask the question. That's why I was wondering how that's set up, how you manage the expectations on the start, or we genuinely mean for all what the special qualities in Pembrokeshire, So yeah, you don't have to come back to you is the risk, and that's the beauty of it as well. But just a note to caution, I suppose. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, Michelle wedi delio ar un cyntaf o'n i'n godi fyna, ond o ran y newid yn y cyngor, dwi'n cofio tua 10 blynedd yn ôl, dyn ni yn cymryd blwyddyn ychwanegol, delay o flwyddyn, mwyn rhoi amser i, cyngor Cefn Gwlad, bryd hynny, i i wneud y gwaith. So mae'n anffodus iawn bod nhw wedi ala 15 mlynedd, ond llai o'n ymfalchio bod nhw'n mynd i wneud e nawr. Ond bydden ni'n gweld, does dim newidau bwreithol wedi bod yn y cyfnod na. So mae gofynion yr un peth, be ni'n cael yw'r cyngor. Yn diddorol, fi'n credu yn Lloegr bod na newid i'r section 62 duty o bosib yn mynd i ddigwydd yn y Senedd, ond o dim amser i gynnwys Cymru. So dwi'n credu falle ar ôl etholiad nesaf bydd na bosib cryfhau hwnna. So bod y cyngor falle mynd i fod yn y dill o wneud e. Ac o ran yr centre place, fi'n credu dyna'r challenge i chi gael cynllun reol i chi'n hapus da. Mewn ffordd, yn dweud.
Any other questions? I've had a proposer and a seconder. I will move to the vote. So Madeline's proposed, Rosie seconded that subject to any amendments requested by members, the proposed approach, milestones and timeline for preparation of the National Park Management Plan 2025. Have a read. So all those in favour, please raise their hands. Oh yeah, I think that's unanimous, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
It's fairly considerable member involvement in the preparation of this anyway. So over to you, Caroline. Thank you.
Good afternoon, rather, good morning, members. Good morning. Yes, so the authority adopted its first Welsh language strategy in 2017. This has now been reviewed, and that review document is appended to the report. While much good work has been undertaken, there is still more to do, and the strategy for the next 5 years is also attached. Both documents have been considered by the Welsh Language Strategy Working Group, Officer Member Working Group, and an integrated assessment has also been carried out on the two documents. And my thanks are given to the authority's Performance and Compliance Officer for her assistance with undertaking that review, that assessment rather. I'm happy to try and answer any questions members have, but otherwise I would take you to the recommendation and ask you to adopt the strategy.
Thank you, and thank you to all officers and working member group members on the working group and the work you've done on this. Do I have any questions, please? Everybody happy? Oh, yes, good, please.
Just un pwynt, dweud y gwir. Wrth ddarllen y ddogfen yma, mae rhywun yn sylweddoli fel ni'n rhan o gynllun mwy. Mae yna bolisi cenedlaethol gan y Llywodraeth Cymru i gyrraedd miliwn o siaradwyr. Be nes i fel ydy, mae hwn yn rhan o'r sydd rhaid ei jigsaw sydd yn at ei gilydd trwy Cymru gyfan. Ond cyfraniad bach iawn sydd gyda ni'n neud. Ond ni chwilio wedyn i weld be oedd gen y Llywodraeth yn oedd nhw'n mynd i wneud. A does na ddim beth nhw'n mynd i wneud yn ei gwaith papur nhw. Maen nhw'n dweud beth di aneliadau nhw, ond nhw ddim yn dweud sut i gyrraedd yno, sut maen nhw'n bwriadu gweithredu. Felly, mae'n anodd iawn dweud y gwir bod yn positif am yr holl sefyllfa yma, achos da ni ddim yn gallu, da chymod, delio bara fwy nhw. Ydy am y gwestiwn, mae jyst yn sylw.
Thank you, diolch, Gwyn. Ruby. Rosie? Can you hear me, Rosie?
Diolch, diolch. Thank you, Gadelia. Yn gyntaf, rydw i eisiau dweud diolch yn fawr iawn am yr gwaith am yr iaith heddi. And that's about as far as I can go, but I'll keep practicing. I want to particularly welcome the strategy, and obviously, though, I do have some concerns about deliverability and resource, and the importance of honest monitoring of its effectiveness too. It's one thing to have a strategy; we need to know whether it's getting us in the right direction and in the right places. And there are things, for example, today we've had our first exploration into using translation services systems, and we know that has, sometimes has technical difficulties. Can I just say how I think today our Welsh speakers in particular have been tremendously helpful in starting slowly so that the translation can catch up, because for others of us, sometimes in other meetings, that can be quite difficult. We sort of miss the beginning. May I also comment on how enormously supportive I've personally found all our Welsh-speaking members of staff to be, and our members, and the encouragement that all of you give to those of us for whom Welsh is not a first language is really brilliant. And it means, likewise, I'm very proud of the efforts that all our chairs make during meetings, at the start of meetings, which is a kind of really important public demonstration of our attitudes. And I'd certainly warmly support the trajectory we're going on here. Thank you. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
Diolch yn fawr. Just i weid, mae'r problemau technegol ddim byd i wneud â cyfieithu a gweud y gwir. Mae'n wneud gyda Teams wedi wneud update dros nos sydd wedi taflu popeth mas o sy'n. Fi'n credu oedd y fersiwn gethoch chi i dreialu wedi gweithio'n arbennig o dda. Felly, just cyd-ddigwyddiad i weld bod pam ni'n gyfieithu. Fi'n cytuno, mae'n heriol, mae'n ofyniad i ni fel sefydliad i ddarparu a creu y strategaeth yma. Ond mewn gwirionedd, dyw'r dulliau cynllunio ieithyddol a reolaeth ieithyddol ddim yn bodoli gyda ni. Ychydig iawn dyn ni yn gwneud fyna, ond dwi'n hefyd fel corff gyhoeddus, mae yn ofynol arno ni i wneud cyfraniad i hyn, ac yn sicr mae'n haws i ni wneud y cyfraniad mewn rhai llefydd, enghraifft Owen yn Castell Henllys yn un, ond fi'n credu i ddyfynu y cyn-gadeirydd Paul Harris yn fe, pam nath i aelod o staff weid, mae rhaid i ni ddarparu gwasanaeth yn Ogledd Sir Benfro. Wel na, mae rhaid ni ddarparu y gwasanaeth ddwyieithog ar dros yr holl ardal, achos mae yna Gymru yn siarad Cymraeg, neu pobl yn siarad Cymraeg, a gweud y gwir ym mhob rhan o sir. Mae yna 10% o boblogaeth Doc Penfro yn siarad Cymraeg, felly mae rhywle tu allan fyna, mae yna 5-600 o bobl. Felly mae'n heriol. So mae'n heri ni i sicrhau bod ni yn gallu cyflogi staff i ddarparu'r gwasanaeth, a mae yna broses dynnu i wneud yna. Mae'n hynod o heriol, mae'n heriol staffio yn arbennig pan mae gofynion penodol hefyd, ond dwi'n credu yn unol gyda rhai o'n polisïau ni, dyma beth sy'n rhaid i ni wneud yn dyfe, ac felly yn cytuno hwn, mae'n rhan o'n cyfrifoldeb ni fel sefydliad i sicrhau bod ni'n cwrdd ar gofynion y safonau. Fyna, a dwi'n cytuno bod angen i ni fonitro, a falle adrodd yn ôl yn well, fel bod ni'n gallu gweld yr effaith cadarnhaol dyn ni'n cael a wneud newidiadau os nad yw bethau yn gweithio.
Mike, please.
Diolch yn fawr cadeirydd. Os gallwn ni cymeryd chi i tudalen 42, y restr o'r ysgolion, o'n i'n gweld bod ddim ysgol gyngradd Llandidoch lawr yna. O'n i'n meddwl ysgol Gymraeg yw e, a dwi'n siŵr bydden nhw'n falch iawn o cymeryd rhan. Dwi ddim yn siŵr pwy i falle siarad gyda a bwyty hwnna, ond fi hoffen i weld ysgol Llandidoch yna. Ond mae ysgol Llandidoch hefyd yn ysgol traeth, beach school. So falle byddai bach o gwybodaeth yn dod allan o hwnna hefyd. So os byddai rhywun gallu gweithio fi pwy byddwn ni gallu siarad gyda a fwyty hwnna, byddwn ni'n ddiolchgar iawn. Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Diolch, Mike.
Ie, dwi'n credu bod y rhestr yna yn restru ysgolion sydd wedi cymryd rhan, yn hytrach na rhai gall gymryd rhan, so'n amlwg o fewn yr amser oedd y rhestr yn cael ei dynnu, oedd Llandidoch ddim wedi wneud dim byd yn y cyfnod na. Dwi'n nawr yn gweud bod nhw ddim yn wneud dim byd, ond heb os na goni bai, fi'n siŵr bod y croeso iddyn nhw i fod yn rhan o unrhyw weithgaredd yr awdurdod.
Diolch yn fawr iawn, Cadeirydd. Diolch.
Diolch. Bethan, Councillor Price, please.
Yeah, also it was mentioning Ysgol Penrhyn Dewi. When you siarad yn Saesneg, ond yeah, Ysgol Penrhyn Dewi is not on the list either, but as you said, it probably wasn't on the list, so it would be, if I could have information as well, like Councillor James, please. Yeah, so,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we will.
Yeah, that'll be provided after the meeting. Then,
Right.
Hey, Bethan. Okay. Rachel, please.
Diolch, Cadeirydd. Wrth ddarllen, dwi'n credu mai siomedig a dweud y gwir faint mae niferoedd y siaradwyr Cymraeg wedi mynd i lawr, wedi gostwng ers ein strategaeth diwetha, a cymryd pwynt gwyn, mae e'n rhywbeth cenedlaethol, ond mae e'n rhywbeth lleol hefyd. Ac felly yr her i ni yw beth i ni'n gwneud y peth, neu beth allwn ni wneud y peth. So mae yna gyfanderau, oes, dyn ni ddim yn Llywodraeth Cymru, a dyn ni ddim yn gyfrifol am bolisi iaith cenedlaethol, deall hynny. Ond dwi'n siŵr bod y strategaeth hon yn ateb y cwestiwn beth i ni'n gwneud o fewn ein cyfrifoldebau ni. Dwi ddim yn teimlo hynny o'r ddogfen, mae rhaid dweud. Hefyd mae'r ffigurau o ran staff wedi mynd lawr. Oedd yna bach yn siom nid sioc, achos dyn ni wedi gweld bore yma, mae yna lot o Gymraeg yn yr awdurdod. Ond ar bapur, yn yr ystadegau, mae'n dangos gostyngiad. Felly eto fi'n credu mae her i ni o ran hyfforddiant staff a recrwtio falle. Dyn ni wedi bod yn bach mwy public gyda recrwtio yn ddiweddar, a dyn ni ddim wedi rhoi Cymraeg yn hanfodol sawl gwaith, a dwi wedi bod yn, wel, edrych ar hwn eto, meddwl, dyn ni wedi penderfyniad iawn felly. Felly rhywbeth i nodi ni, fi'n credu, mae nifer y staff wedi gostwng, a dyw hwnna ddim yn mynd i helpu o ran hybu'r Gymraeg y dyfodol felly. Ac yn fwy gyffredinol, dwi'n credu mae'r adroddiad yn dda o ran ein perfformiad ni. Mae lot o waith yn mewn i'r adroddiad ar ein perfformiad blaenorol o'r strategaeth. Ond falle mewn mannau, dyw'r ystadegau ddim ar ryw esboniad o dan o fe dweud pam neu'r beth ni'n mynd i wneud o sgil hynny te, so what? Dwi ddim yn dod allan i fi cymed allan ni o ran beth ni'n gwneud o'r pethau hyn. So i fi, dwi'n gwerthfawrogi'r gwaith ar y strategaeth, falle bach yn lefel uchel, a mynd nôl i pwynt Rosi, falle os eisiau tabl gweithredu, neu cynllun gweithredu eistedd o dan hwn, felly bob blwyddyn mae yna 5 pwynt i ni mynd i gyflawni. Felly er enghraifft, mae cyfieithu ar y pryd yn rhywbeth ffantastig, dyn ni'n neud eleni, byddai hwnna yn y tabl, yn y cynllun gweithredu. Felly i fi mae eisiau rhywbeth concret arno ni, a bod yn onest. Dim byd mawr, ond gwbl o pwyntiau gweithredu concret i ni fonitro fel aelodau bob blwyddyn. Byddwn ni'n gwerthfawrogi hynny, dwi'n credu, o ran gwneud pethau gweithredol. Diolch.
Dwi'n credu, mae'r ochr staffio yn hynod o heriol, fel ni'n gweud, mae'n heriau staffio dy beth. Fi'n gallu meddwl am un swydd sydd yn eich hyn o bryd, mae yr lefel yr ymgeiswyr i ni ddim yn ddigonol o ran y Gymraeg. Dwi'n ymwybodol yn y maes yma bod o leia 5 sefydliad arall yn chwilio am swyddog tebyg. A felly y cwestiwn i ba raddau dyn ni'n gadael pethau i fynd heb staff yn dyfe. Felly, dyn ni ddim cweit wedi llwyddo gyda'r ochr o hyfforddi staff. Angen i ni gael well trafodaeth gyda'r Ganolfan Genedlaethol ar hwnna. Wedi gweud ni, mae da ni chydoi 3 aelod staff sydd wedi cyrraedd y lefel i allu gweithio yn y Gymraeg fel dysgwyr, ac mae'r aelodau hefyd yn dyfe, felly mae'n bosib, ond dwi'n credu mae hwnna'n rhywbeth Heb os yn y
Wel ar link yn dyfe, hyfforddiant recrwtio, o'r ddoi yn
Ie,
ysgol i
ie.
gyd. Ie, reit heriol, ond falle cwpl o bwyntiau gweithredu mwy concret i fi, byddai hwnna'n help. Diolch.
Thank you.
No, sorry, I've read on and realised that I was going to bring something up that is completely irrelevant. My apologies.
Be honest with
Bethan, I've said Phil.
Oh yeah, just a quick, I can just see here as well that the new edition of the Coast to Coast next year, it'll be published bilingually, and I just that'll be nice. That's all I have to say. Just observe that.
And Mike James, please.
Diolch yn fawr iawn. Just dilyn lan i beth wedi Tegrin yn gweud nawr, a beth i dysgwyr. Mae 3 grŵp da ni yn y pentref fan hyn, Gwaniaeth Safonau, a mae grŵp wedyn yn Castell Aberteifi. Mae un o'r grwpau da ni yma yn y pentref yn yr tafarn cymunedol. So, diolch yn fawr, os bydd yr una'n rhoi di enwau lawr ar unrhyw gwybodaeth y gofyn, bydden nhw ddim yn rhoi di enwau lawr fel siarad Cymraeg, ond maen nhw'n prowd iawn na bod nhw'n dysgu Cymraeg. So, dwi'n credu falle bod eisiau falle cael rhifau o faint o dysgwyr Cymraeg sy'n gael yn yr ardal neu yn y sir yn wir. Sa'n mo beth y Tegrin yn meddwl o tyna. Diolch yn fawr iawn i chi.
Diolch, Mike. Mae'n ffrifiad yn dweud hynny mewn ffordd. Dyn ni ddim ar ystadegau fan hyn, ond mae yna fwy na un targed, siarad, deall, ysgrifennu, felly mae'r ystadegau yn y cyfrifiad.
Fi'n cael yna lot o waith wedi bod. Fi'n cael oedd tystiolaeth y canlyniadau cyfrifiad yn sioc i lot o bobl. Achos oedd pawb yn disgwyl ei fynd lan, a fel lawr. Fi'n cael yna lot o feddwl. Dwi fel rhywun sydd yn lwng gyda'r ysgol sy'n addysgu 700 mwy o blant yn y Gymraeg nag oedd adeg y cyfrifiad arall, dwi'n ffindo fe'n ryfeddol i weld y dirywiad na, yn dy fe. Ond wrth gwrs, os ydych chi'n edrych ar stadegau pwy sy'n byw yn yr ardal, byw yn y parc, be ni wedi gweld cynnydd sylweddol falle o bobl sydd â oedran hŷn, sydd o bosib wedi symud i mewn. Ac felly, dyna lle mae'n lwm gyda polisi y tai, yn rhan o polisi y cynlluniau, tai fforddiadwy ac yn y blaen. Mewn ffordd, mae hwn yn rhywbeth dylai fod ar draws holl polisïau, yr awdurdod ac awdurdodau lleol a cyrff gyhoeddus hefyd yn dyfe, achos mae un peth yn cael yr effaith ar llall yn dyfe, ond odi. Mae yna gyfarfod a dornod o drafod yn hwnna'n unan.
Thank you. I'm just mindful of the action points that you've mentioned, Rachel, and how we can incorporate those in this. So is that something that we can?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Chair, through you, I think Maya is intending to have performance measures on Welsh language. We're hoping to develop those, I think, and so maybe we can just pull that out perhaps through the performance reporting.
But action points,
slightly different.
Yeah, action points. Yeah, it's different from what your request.
Yeah, I don't want to create an industry out of it. Doesn't say actions, concrete actions, a couple of key things we sign up. And I think they're there. They're just not necessarily in this document. We've talked about education. Are we increasing the number of courses with schools in the next year? Simultaneous translation, number 2. So we've got a lot of concrete actions we could take. Actually, staff training. You know, so. Bit of that, I think, to beef it up, I think, and that could be an annex action plan to see and then monitor that.
So if we adopt this draft now, then will that come back with those action points, or how's that going to work? I'm just thinking.
Yeah, we can do that. We'll have a look.
Yeah, but will that come back to MPA to be finalised, or with that
just
an amendment
that delegate to us?
We have to delegate
action plan. Yeah.
There's a group already, isn't there?
Yeah, obviously, we delegate to the funding
We do that.
the working group that's been existing. Good, okay. Any other questions, members, before I ask for a proposal? I don't think I've had one. Don't think. No? Well, I'm happy to move it. Fine. Good. If there's no further with the amendment of the action plan, all those in favour, please. Resuming.
I think it's.
I think that was unanimous. Thank you. I will go to the next report. I am just gone half. Go to the next one and then I'll have a quick break then afterwards. So this is report 4423. It's the Standards Committee report and it's over to the Monitoring Officer, Mike. Please.
Yes, thank you, members. This is the first time we've had to do a report of this nature to the NPA, introduced by Section 63 of the Local Government Elections Act 2021. It came before us on the 5th of May last year. So this is the first report we've had to do. I've set out in the report the terms of reference to the Standards Committee, which you'll be familiar with. I then set out the membership. The chair is John Daniels, independent member, and the deputy chair is Vicky Tomlinson, also an independent member. Training, you'll recall the training we did after the elections in May 22. It is unfortunate, of course, because subsequently we've done training more recently. That will be dealt with in the next report in the next year after March 24. The training took place in May 22 at County Hall. Bethany Evans, who you're familiar with from the training she's done here previously, was the main speaker. I did a presentation, as did Rian Young at ECC, the head of legal there. All went well, I think, and the fact that we've had very few issues here, I think, shows that people have taken on board what we've learned. Complaints, the next paragraph, again, that's something that we have now dealt with and will be in the next report sometime next year. Current complaints in the year 22-23, we've had 23 complaints being recorded by the NPA, but 11 of those related to the increase in car park season tickets, so they were anticipated really. 3 complaints relating to the breaches of the Members' Code of Conduct, which the Ombudsman looked at but felt no action was required, which is good news. 5 complaints were escalated to me in accordance with our old complaints procedure. 1 related to the car parking charge increase. Again, the Ombudsman found in our favour, and the other 3 complaints, again, the Ombudsman decided not to investigate. I deal then subsequently with another unusual complaint, but I won't go into that in any detail unless someone wants to speak to me about it later. Trends, not really. I mean, I think that by and large things are going pretty well. You know, people are complying with the code of conduct, and there's no particular concern that I have about that. I think Tegan will agree with that. But it is important, I think, that members do attend training when they can, and that because obviously, if there is a complaint to the Ombudsman, then he will look at whether people have attended training and make it more difficult, perhaps, if they haven't done so. So those that didn't attend the training, perhaps they can make sure they do so next time. In last year, we've had no recourse to the local resolution protocol and no new applications for dispensations. As I said I would do, I wrote to all members after the elections to extend the dispensation, BCC members to deal with the county council matters for the national park. And then turning lastly to the annual report of the Ombudsman, I set out there the number of complaints and the number that were referred to the adjudication panel for Wales. So That's it. Just ask, note the report, and any questions, happy to answer them if I can.
Simon has been, sorry. Councillor Hancock, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Standards Committee is very ably chaired by John Daniels and very expertly supported by Mr. Michael Kent. So I'm pleased that it's very low level of activity and members are taking responsibility very seriously under the Code of Conduct. So with those brief remarks, Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation this report be noted on page 53 of the agenda.
Thank you, Simon. Rosie, please.
Likewise, thank you. As one of the Standards Committee, I'd like to thank Mike for the work he's done in throughout and in this report. It's never easy and comfortable ground on which to operate, and it sometimes takes the patience of Job and striking the balance of a tightrope walker. And it's great that we do have a monitoring officer who's with us. I think it's a huge benefit to the authority that we do. And obviously we've all noted his point about attendance at Code of Conduct, which is useful, and I'm very happy therefore to second the motion. Thanks.
Madeline?
Just a point of style, really. This is a very personal report. Obviously, it is the monitoring officer's report. I just wondered whether for the next one we might move into a more descriptive, but with your name on it. So following the sort of standard third party sort of rather than I have,
Yes,
but
of course,
it was it stands it back as becoming a report of the authority, although it is your report, Mike. So
yeah, that's fine.
Just a suggestion.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And just as a reminder, those that couldn't make the Code of Conduct training, I believe it was recorded. So you have the opportunity of watching it online if you haven't already done so. But I'm sure you already have.
Now, there's a little film that actually I meant to distribute to members, which we did when I was at PCC a few years ago, about how they're not to conduct a committee. I don't know whether anybody's seen it. Yes. Yeah, I've seen it.
And just to add to that, I thought the range of scenarios that we talked through was really helpful, and I think it was suggested that you could probably say the best outcome to have that linked with the recording as well. That'd be really useful, Mike. It brings things to life, doesn't it? Really
it does.
Great, thank you. There's no further questions. I've had a proposer by Councillor Simon Hancock and a second through the plumber. All those in favour, just for noting. Unanimous, thank you. What time is it now? I think that's what's wrong, isn't it?
Yeah,
That's just 12. But we could meet back at, we're just having a short break now. We could meet back at 5 to 12. We've got 10 minutes basically. Thank you. Unfortunately, Chris Williams has given his apologies for the remainder of the meeting. We will crack on with agenda item 4523, the income diversification group. And this paper is agreement to set up a group to guide and support the work of the authority in relation to diversification. We've obviously discussed that at some length recently, and it's over to Tegrin.
Okay, diolch yn fawr i chi. Byddwch chi fel aelodau yn ymwybodol bod Archwilio Cymru wedi gwneud darn o waith yn gynharach eleni ar asgyfeirio incwm. Yn rhan o hwnna oedd edrych ar checklist i roi barn a cyngor i ni ar yn dulliau o reoli'r gwaith yma. Gaethon ni weithdi fel reolwyr a hefyd gweithdi fel aelodau, ac allan o'r broses yna, dwi'n credu cafwyd y syniad bod ni'n creu grŵp oedd yn cynnwys aelodau, staff ac o bosib bobl o tu allan gyda arbenigedd yn y maes yma, jyst i roi cyngor, i roi rhyw fath o fframwaith ac i trafod y maes yma. Byddwch chi'n ymwybodol, mae yna weithdy dyn ni ar ôl hyn sy'n mynd i amlinellu sefyllfa heriol iawn sydd gyda ni. Hwn yn rhywbeth pwysig i wneud. Felly, y cyfan sy'n digwydd i chi fel awdur i greu grŵp, i gael eich caniatad i greu grŵp ar meini terms of reference ar gyfer y grŵp yna. Yn hapus i gael unrhyw gwestiynau neu unrhyw drafodaeth fyna, ond dyna'n hanfod i'r cyfan mae'r papur yn holi.
Diolch, Tegwyn. Any questions from members, please? Dr. Bummer, please. You're on mute, Rosie.
Sorry, diolch, Tegwyn. I couldn't. It's getting scoma. The wind's in my ears. I couldn't quite work out whether you intended that this should be a sort of task and finish group or ongoing in perpetuity, as it were.
I was thinking of it as not as a task and finish because it's an ongoing piece of work, but almost I think what I put in was that it's reviewed annually and almost we report back to you in June with the AGM, and then you can decide whether it served its purpose or whether we continue for another year. So an ongoing one, but rather than just an ongoing in perpetuity, an ongoing as long as it's useful.
Thank you. Rachel, please.
Mae'r un cwestiwn, dy fi yn dweud y gwir, a jyst eisiau profi hynny bach yn fwy. Os oes grŵp at y gorffen gyda chi, falle bod tasg da rhywun ar ryw amser penodol i ddod nôl gyda rhywbeth, ac dwi'n trial meddwl sut mae hwnna'n mynd i weithio da'r pwyllgor archwilio hefyd wedyn, a sut i ni'n derbyn adroddiadau, os ydyn nhw'n just adroddiadau ongoing, ie. Dwi'n credu eto gyda fi bod e bach mwy tasg y gorffen dan amser pendant. Dwi yn deall yr her a beth ych chi di esbonio, ond dwi'n eisiau hefyd bod yn rhywbeth sydd byth yn dod i ben, a bod y grŵp yn siŵr beth maen nhw fod i wneud neu ddim fod i wneud mewn arbennig, a dwi yn credu bod yn faint o her dyn ni'n y flwyddyn sydd i ddod. Mae yna dasg pendant cychwynnol gyda ni o leia yn does sy'n datrys ambell beth. Ac i ddod nôl ar ryw fath o deimlad o risg i ni fel yr awdurdod ar pa mor bell ni eisiau mynd gyda greu incwm. Felly mae'na gwestiwn penodol cychwynnol i fi. Risk appetite, timod?
Okay. Os ydych chi moyn, dwi'n credu falle bod y heriau cyllidol sydd da ni yn mynd i fod dros nifer o flynyddoedd. Ond os ydych chi moyn lle addas i wneud e fel tasg y gorffen, bydden ni'n pennu hwn am Mehefin 2025. So mae hwnna'n rhoi 19 mis. Y rheswm fi'n mynd am Mehefin yw achos dyna pryd mae'n cyfarfod blynyddol ni, ac felly mae lot haws i apwyntio. Dyna pryd ni'n apwyntio pwyllgorau y beth yn dyfa. Felly mae 6 mis i Mehefin 2024 ddim yn byd i mi lot. Mae'n gyfer beth wedi digwydd ond fyna. So bydd na 19 mis a wedyn bod ni'n cael rhyw fath o farn blwydd hynny os na werth y grŵp fel la. So os chi moyn addasu i wneud e fel la, mae gweithio hwnna.
Sorry, just don't gloi, ond falle bod eisiau rhyw fath o terfyn amser gynt na hynny, ble maen nhw'n adrodd ar ryw dasg arbennig. Ac yn fi, os nad ydych chi'n gwybod rhywbeth erbyn gwedwch mae hefyd flwyddyn nesaf neu'r haf, a pa ffordd i fynd ambell beth, bydd y broblem eisoes wedi gorfod cael ei sortio mewn ambell fam. Achos mae'r costiau mynd i fynd lan, mae'r gyllideb yn aros yn un fan, felly fi mae'r broblem yn dod yn eitha gynnar. Dwi'n gwybod gyda ni profil tair i 5 mlynedd ble mae amser gyda ni o ran ein coffrau, ond mae'n cyfyneb gynt i fi. Felly dwi'n siŵr bod mae Mehefin 25 cyn bod rhaid i'r grŵp adrodd o rhywbeth. Fi wedi gweld y grŵp yn gwneud rhywbeth gwahanol a dweud gwir, ond dwi'n eisiau profi'r peth.
O'n i ddim yn meddwl bod dim byd yn digwydd tan ni. Y cyfan, beth oedd allan o hwn yn dyfa bod angen i ni gael mewnbwn o ffindrwydd fi'n gallu cyfrannu hwn. A hefyd, wnaethon ni ddefnyddio'r enghraifft lle gaethon ni gynnig arian gan un o'r cwmnïau awyren, yn dyfa. Ac oedd rhaid ni gael ymateb cyflym iawn, ac y gweud y gwir, yr unig bobl oedd yn bosib i fi oedd dau a y cadeirydd a'r is-gadeirydd, yn dyfa. Bydde wedi bod yn diddorol iawn i fod yn cael y sgwrs na gyda grŵp ehangach o aelodau, fe gaethon ni fel staff, ac oedd staff wedi rannu hanner a hanner, a fel oedd yn digwydd, oedd y ddoi aelod wedi bod hanner a hanner. Felly, ambell waith, mae rhywbeth fel yn codi. So, o'n i ddim yn meddwl, o'n i'n meddwl bydde y cofnodion y grŵp yn mynd i'r pwyllgor archwilio, felly bod yna broses barhaol o hwnna, heblaw bod rhywbeth sydd â sensitifrwydd masnachol yn ddim o'n rhannu, ynddo fe, fel la. Felly, o'n i'n sicr ddim yn meddwl, pan ni wedi gwneud fel grŵp tasg y gorffen y blaen fel toiledau meysydd parcio, dwi wedi bod yn gweithio i bwynt fyna mwyn wneud penderfyniad. Dwi hwn ddim yn un o'r reina, achos dwi'n gobeithio bydd yna rhyw pipeline gynyddol o syniadau. Iawn, fi'n siŵr beth hwn yna syniad, newn ni wneud hwnna, wedyn bydd rhywbeth arall yn dod hefyd, ynddo fe, achos o'n i'n mynd i ddatrys y broblem yma drwy un peth. A hwn yn mynd i fod yn rhywbeth barhaol, felly o'n i ddim moyn just cael y gofod na i gynnwys aelodau staff ag eraill mwyn dod â syniadau i'w prif pwrpas, dim byd mwy na ni.
Sori, mae gwaniaeth mawr rhwng y syniadau a'r penderfyniadau i fi. Felly, ddim yn siŵr fe mynd i weithio mewn reality. Gweud bod rhywbeth yn dod mewn fel problem ar y wyren yna, cwmni warennau. Ydy'r grŵp yma, neu'r pwyllgor yma felly, yn mynd i drafod hynny, penderfyniad ar un peth. Neu ydyn ni wedi creu egwyddorion a ryw fath o bolisi ni gyd yn deall, ac wedyn yn gweithio mewn yr egwyddor. So, y reality sut ydyn ni'n gwneud yn hwn i weithio fi'n credu, a dwi ddim eisiau bod fel cadeirydd yn cael cofnodion a yn eitha nerfus yn meddwl, wel, ble ni'n sefyll fel pwyllgor archwilio i ddweud i yn yna benderfyniadau grŵp. So dwi'n yn siŵr am y llywodraethau ar un o bryd.
O'n i ddim yn, wel, ffordd mae wedi ysgrifennu, dyw e ddim yn grŵp sy'n penderfynu. Achos mewn gwirionedd, mae yna ddau dillon neu penderfyniad o fewn yr awdurdod. Mae un o'i chi'n neud fel aelodau yn gwneud penderfyniadau, ac y geithrio ceisiadau cynllunio, yr unig le chi'n gwneud penderfyniadau yw fan hyn, yn gyfarfod yr awdurdod. So bydd unrhyw beth sy'n dod i aelodau yn dod i gyfarfod yr awdurdod. Fel na, neu chi wedi delegeiddio i fi. Ynddo fe? So i ryw raddau, o'n i'n gweld falle prif rôl y grŵp oedd fy nghori i arno fe. Achos mae lot o hyn yn wedi delegeiddio, ynddo fe? Ond mae unrhyw beth bydde y grŵp am wneud, bydde yn gorfod cael caniatad a cefnogaeth yr aelodau yn dod i gyfarfod yr awdurdod. Felly, o'n i ddim yn rhagweld yn rhywun oedd yn gwneud penderfyniad fel cyfrwyo, ynddo fe? Ar gymell.
I'm going to bring Rosie in for a minute. Thank you, Rosie.
Diolch, thank you very much. Yeah, just to come back on that, Tegwyn, and in general, it felt to me that there are some parallels with the parking, in that one of the first things we did was sort of set out principles, and I think that, you know, was useful to have a working group to sort of determine some principles. When we had the workshop on diversification, actually there was really quite a lot of debate about, you know, the basis for doing things, what we should and what we shouldn't, not specifics at an operational level, but principles. And it felt to me that a diversification group could come forward with some principles, obviously for consideration by the MPA, and then separately, as you rightly say, it may be useful to have a sounding board on an ongoing basis for some matters for you, but we need to distinguish between what's the role of the NPA in a strategic sense and what's your authority quite properly in an operational sense. But it felt to me that principles was a useful thing for a working group to do.
Thanks, Rosie. Actually, I was going to bring that up because I'm mindful that there's sort of two issues here, isn't there? So we've got to be, if we set how we set the principles in the first instance, and then how we measure those against anything that may come our way in the future, I think. So how would we, if the working group come up with a set of principles, which I imagine anybody can feed into that group, it's not just those members that are included in that, so we can make our you know, feelings known. So would those principles come to MPA to be voted on, and then I just want to understand the process, because that's how I feel more comfortable with, I think.
Yeah, to be honest, I think a couple of things. In terms of principles, I would say you are largely setting a policy there. Therefore, without a shadow of doubt, that would come to the FDA. So the car parking example is the group set of principles, and then those principles, as part of the offering, the outcome came to the authority. In the car park case, it came to the authority as the end of the process. This is not an end of the process. So we might have the first meeting, come up with some principles, and therefore the next MPA have got those principles. We're really facing a significant financial challenge. I want things to be as easy as possible. We had this workshop, which suggested this group. I don't, if the group becomes more difficult to manage and stops us diversifying, it's not worth having it, if I'm totally honest with you. But I can see the use. There are different ways we can do it. But based on the recommendations of Audit Wales, which I did feel were more focused on formalising bits, but and what came out of the workshop, this seemed to be what was being suggested. But
I'm just clear that there probably are some real definite red lines that we say absolutely not, and I think those are the bits that we need to establish what we should and shouldn't do. Madeline?
I think that that framework setting is critical for this group and really important for all the officers. So it's really useful to have that joint approach. And I'm sure, as Tegrid said, it will need to be ongoing. I'm sure it will develop, and it may well be that probably not this coming AGM, but the next one, we think, well, it might have done its job, or we could change it or whatever. But I think it's a really sensible approach to have a group that does not necessarily have an end clearly defined, but does have a task that's clearly defined, which is the first thing being to set up a framework within which we can look at stuff, and then there will be constantly stuff coming up, as has already been said, but the framework needs to be approved by the whole authority.
Absolutely.
Then I suspect that the group might want to bring its thoughts about various things, but as Rosie's already said, a lot of it is operational, but there are some really key issues with money and accepting it and raising it, so I think it's something we all need to be on top of and aware of, at least.
Yeah, but if we set those principles, we might be really short on finances going forward, but actually we still got to stick to those principles.
Absolutely. No, that's why you have it.
Dr. Hancock, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm clear that the sensible recommendations are a direct response to the Audit Wales paper that we had on income diversification in the park. Obviously, this is to generate additional funds for the authority. I'm just wondering if there's any connectivity or linkage with another organisation that is raising funds, doing admirable work in raising money for the wider park purposes, and that's the Pembrokeshire Coast Charitable Trust. Is there any sort of, will the work be supplemented between the two? We're not going to be stepping on any toes as such, or could they work together?
The Pembrokeshire Coast National Parks Trust is an independent charity. Therefore, obviously, as an authority, while we fund and support it, then certainly I'm looking at this as the work of the authority rather than the charity. I would like to think that the trust does raise money to support the work of the authority. Therefore, while in a governance sense it wasn't, but I certainly wouldn't expect the group to be discussing the strategy and approach of the charity. And to be honest, if we were to question the resourcing that we put into the charity, I sense that would be more appropriate as an authority item rather than as a group item.
Okay, Simon? Yeah.
Thanks.
So if we're going with this approach and we look at the accountability bit, it could do with a bit of clarification or a bit more work in that section then about if the minutes are going to the audit committee, what are we doing with those? Mindful of not just adding bureaucracy, or do I guide members of that committee on what are we doing? Does it work both ways? So if in audit committee we've been looking at something of the profile, the 5-year profile, and we can say in action or something that the task and finish group should look at, where does that go? So I think some of that could do with working through, or is it a diagram or something? I don't know. But there's something in the mechanics for me I don't want to get caught up in and therefore cause bureaucracy and problems. I'm not sure what having minutes to audit committee going to do. Is it just an in-between info piece? But it says here that it goes to NPA annually as a progress report. So yeah, I'm not sure of the comings and goings and twos and fro's and who's doing what exactly. I've got to be honest. Yeah.
I sensed you went to audit because of the discussions we had with members of the audit.
It just says minutes of the group, so I think that quite reflects.
But, you know, I think I was reflecting the discussions in the workshop, actually. To be honest, the natural place for them to come in the same way as every other minute, every set of minutes would the authority. So, you know, we don't need to. But I think the view that was expressed in the workshop was that this was within the wider remit of audit, and therefore that was an appropriate one. Yeah. More than happy for them to come to the authority instead.
Do you mind if I just clarify? Because in that particular workshop, my point was exactly what is the role between that subgroup and audit, because you could say audit has a key role in this regard in terms of our finances. So I think it does need to play a role, but just seeing minutes of that group, I don't think is going to be effective. So I know what you're saying about NPA and its role, don't disagree with that at all, totally agree. But then I don't quite see the role of audit. So I think perhaps something offline, but there's something in the nitty gritty, I think, between chairs to understand before we start, so we know what we're doing.
Yeah, okay.
Well, if you take the view, you are in this National Park Authority, the ultimate decision maker. Yeah. You have the right to delegate anything to anybody, really, there. So, you know, but there has to be, in delegating, there has to be another process for you to monitor and keep an eye. So whether that is, whichever way you decide to do it, is fine. The natural way we do it is that you are presented with all the committee minutes here, and you receive the minutes. You know, I think the outcome I took from the workshop was that the view was that that should be via the audit committee, but I don't think it makes any difference as long as we have that delegation and accountability. It's fine, whatever you as members decide.
I think there is an issue between in the nomenclature, really, because this won't be a committee in terms of its reporting, and rightly so. It will be a task and finish group or an advisory group, I think, is actually, but what it needs to do is to bring this framework together for approval.
And that should come
definitely to NPA, definitely to all authority members. I think it is important that there is, as you've said, the reporting back or the oversight. And I think that's the formality probably that Audit Wales is looking for. So there's always somebody who's overseeing the work of. Now, we did, with the couple of task and finish groups we've had, it's been to help produce reports that have come here. This is a slightly different one in that we are talking about establishing a group that's going to have a continuing role. But why don't we try to start with having a task and finish group very clearly that establishes the advisory, the framework and how it works. And hopefully that will be done by June. Do you think? It should be. It should be. It's coming, you know, coming together. Come to the NPA at some stage, but you know, if we're talking about continuing membership, it might be, or we could just deal with it as is. We don't have to get terribly hung up by it being a committee that has to meet all of our committee timetables and reporting. And in fact, obviously, with income generation, there will be quite a lot of stuff.
Fleet of foot, haven't we, on this
Yeah,
as well?
we've got to be fleet of foot, and there will be stuff that perhaps we don't want widely discussed. We want it discussed within the NPA. So it's, you know, we might find ourselves needing to have a different approach on this one. But once we've got the actual principles and framework sorted, I wouldn't get too hung up on where it's important, but I think it is important that it does report.
I'm sorry to get hang on a minute, I'm just not Tegwyn to.
A couple of things on that. First, we deliberately set it up as a working group as opposed to a committee, therefore there. Secondly, I was trying to think of comparators. Was it's slightly different, but the closest comparator I can think of is our health and safety group. I know it doesn't involve members, but actually our health and safety group meets. The minutes are presented to the audit committee and then via that to the authority meeting. So you've got structure there. But to be perfectly honest, from my point of view, my main aim is the financial sustainability of this organisation. You know, we want to do that in an appropriate manner. You know, we can spend as much as you like on frameworks and stuff like that, but basically, we will lose staff if we don't renovate more.
You've got to do
So that's our thing. Now we want to do that in an appropriate manner for a public body and ensure that accountability. But that ultimately, if the process of managing this, which I did feel a bit of the Audit Wales did cross into, creates more work than the benefits of generating income, then we're going to have issues.
Okay, Rachel.
So Audit Wales sits on audit committee. They come along with that. So just being aware of that visibility, what we're meant to do there. Yes, they talked about some elements of governance, but the checklist is much more than that. Yes. And one of the first key things is, are we all agreed on the appetite? So there's lots in that checklist. They're not particularly governance driven at all, actually. It's whether we're all in agreement, which goes back to principles and key packages and things like that. So just wanted to put that right on Audit Wales. Agree with everything that's been said about MPA. That's not a disagreement for me. It is, I think, to work out how audit committee fits into this. So with health and safety, it isn't just the minutes we have. We were part of the action plan on the HSE bit and other bits, but this terms of reference just says minutes of the group. So if we're going to have minutes of the group, what are we doing with those? And is that important? So that's the piece for me, or what you want audit to do. And that might be too detailed for today, but genuinely, you just need to work that through, because we don't want to be working against each other. Back to your point, you don't want a bureaucratic process, you want to be as slick as possible. So I think there's some work to do in the detail and something in this terms of reference. It feels a bit bureaucratic the way it's been set up for me on this one compared to some of the others we've done. And it feels some crossover between a committee and a group by the very nature of discussion and what we put down here on paper. So yeah, I'll leave it there because I'm not disagreeing with most of your high level arguments. We need to generate income. Yeah, the clarity around audit committee and how we're going to work with this group is key for me as that chair. So happy to take that offline if you were to discuss, but I just want to know what we're doing.
Yeah, okay. Rosie, please.
Thanks. Yes, I mean, it is things like the risk appetite and the profitability, and as you rightly say, Tegwyn, if it creates more heat than light, it's actually not useful. And indeed where it answers to or not answers to is not the best, where the best oversight might be, are amongst the principles that could be developed. And I would have thought we wanted to do that, frankly, by the end of March, so we're sort of prepped for the new financial year. Equally, that the preparing those principles should not in any way stand in your way operationally in taking forward ideas that you already do. It's part of your operational remit, because we have a sort of commerciality of our activities.
Thank you. Dr. Hancock, not sure that's the legacy hand. Simon? Oh, gone. Okay, thank you. I'm just wondering how we progress this.
Well, yeah, sorry, the only thing I'd say is, I think it's very clear, the requirement for this group came from you as members in the workshop rather than Audit Wales. Audit Wales do not prescribe that we set up a group. It was just considered a convenient way at that time. If it's no longer a convenient way, we can shelve this. There are many different ways we can do it, but I was responding to
Yeah.
what came out of that workshop.
Yeah.
There.
Is this something we could agree to or vote on the recommendation and then take the bit of where it sits offline? Would you be happy with that, Rachel?
I think number 2 is the thing, agree in the terms of reference. So
Yeah, that's true. I also just would like to raise about co-opting 3
Yeah.
additional members from outside the authority. Would they be voting members?
No.
I'm presuming not. And also, would they stay for the duration, or would they be coming in and out? And how would that be set up as well? I'm still a bit sort of not worried, but just a bit concerned how that might
is it
work.
worth us, is that,
Yeah,
there's probably a little bit of mechanics in this,
Yeah,
the nature of it.
Yeah.
The external members, how long are they on? Will that be remunerated? You know, how often do you meet? So I think there's a few things, if it's going down in terms of reference path and is ongoing, could do with a bit of fleshing out.
So if we, to move this on a little bit then, we can do 1 and 3. Setting up of an income group. I think we are probably all in agreement that we should do that from comments, but I'll be led by you guys and girls. And we can appoint members of the group from membership. And then perhaps we'll just have this discussion about terms of reference to perhaps sorting out the other couple of bits.
If I, you know,
what are members' views on that?
I think that's a very sensible way forward. In fact, that's usually the way that these groups work, isn't it? That you appoint the members and at their first meeting, they read out the terms of reference.
So I'm going to move that.
And I'm happy to second.
Okay. Is everybody got any further questions before we go to the vote on this? Okay, so I know it's not exactly as we might wish it, but I think this is the way to move it on. All those in favour for 1 and 3, and then we'll have a sort of a bit of an offline discussion on 2. So all those in favour, please. Any abstentions? Any against? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, good. That one done. Right, just
Chair, do you need to work out
members?
Oh, yes, oh, yes, thank you for reminding me. We need 6 members of the authority. A 2-to-1 ratio has been suggested. Who would like to put their names forward? Rush?
Start on that. Is the 2-to-1 that important?
Well,
that's
not the top.
Gain the knowledge. So that's worth saying. Perhaps who's interested, who can add.
if I'm honest, I was trying to learn the lessons from the past in the fact that when we set up one of the toilets or the car parking, we ended up appointing the group, and then at the following meeting we had to delay the start of the group in order to set the terms of reference. So we were trying to wrap it all into one. Obviously not worth
Not quite. No. They are. Rosie.
Happy to put my hat in the ring if nobody else will do, recognising that my diary constraints might make it a little bit tricky. But I mean, I'm assuming that, like the car parking, you know, with good, neat meetings, we can support Tegrin in the ambitions he wants to come to, and have some clear guidelines for the authority to consider.
Okay. I'm quite happy to put my name to it as well. Who else would like to put their name to it? 3. Any others? Reg? Thank you. Need 2 more?
Well, if somebody, you know,
So if somebody wants to
just let us know.
just
Yeah.
let us know, yeah. And we can start.
After all, Chris isn't here. We could certainly encourage him to join.
Later.
Chris and Peter.
And actually, sorry, Chair, Julie James may be inclined to, given that obviously with other hats on, she's been involved in a range of these areas.
Well, we won't take it.
Shall I circulate an email?
Yes, please. We won't take it for granted that she might want to, but we'll ask the question. Good, thank you very much. Right, that's agenda item completed. But just before we go into potentially private session, I just wanted to slightly deviating from the agenda, bring members' attention to an NRW warning letter that we received this spring. I've seen the outcome of the investigation, which I'll pop over to Edwin now just for you to go through.
Okay, yeah, diolch yn fawr.
Briefly.
Gynharach yn y blwyddyn, I'll wait for you. Oedd na dawn o waith cymarol fach o Blaenau Ffos, fyna gyda contractwr yn gwneud fe arweiniodd hyn at ryddhau dŵr brown gyda posibilrwydd o lygredd mewn i nant oedd e mewn i afon fwy. Felly nath hwnna arwen at ymweliad wrth un o swyddogion cyfoes naturiol Cymru. Fe datrys, fe lwyddwyd i ddatrys y broblem. Tua mis yn hwyrach fe gaethon ni rybydd, llythyr rybydd wrth cyfoes naturiol Cymru. I fod yn hollol onest, wnaethon ni ddim fel rheolwyr ddim yn ymwybodol o hyn am tua 6-7 mis, dim ond yn ddiweddar. Dwi'n gwneud yn arferol byddwn ni wedi cael chywbod ar y pryd. Dio ddim yn rhywbeth sy'n digwydd yn aml. Fe wnaethon ni gael ymchwiliad ohono fe. Ni wedi gwneud cwbl o argymhellion ynglyn â'n dulliau o reoli contractwyr a hefyd cynllunio gwaith. I fod yn hollol onest, o'n i'n teimlo bod pob ystyriaeth resymol wedi cael ei gwneud. Jyst oedd e'n darn o waith sy'n cael ei wneud bod cwbl o blynyddoedd sydd wedi bod yn iawn dros y blynyddoedd yn fi'n credu falle achos lefel y dŵr yn yr ardal fyna. Be gollon ni oedd y cyfle i herio'r rybydd o bosib sy'n ni'n gwybod ar y pryd bydden ni wedi, ond dyna ni, ond bydden ni unrhyw beth ni'n cael fel hyn, bydden ni yn cael chywbod. So ymddiriadau bod fi nifer o fysoedd yn hwyr, ond ni ddim moyn cuddio dim byd wrthoch chi. Hapus i derbyn unrhyw gwestiwn os oes angen.
Diolch, Tegwyn, and say I've seen the outcome of the internal investigation and consent that was a thorough investigation, and processes have been put in place to avoid it happening again. I can guarantee to everybody that PCMP acted swiftly and worked with NRW immediately. There being no further questions or comments on that, I will go to, thank you, Tegwyn. I will go to item 10 to consider whether the public should be excluded from the meeting during the consideration of the following item due to the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 14 of part 4 of Schedule 12A to the Local Government Act 1972, and this relates to the redevelopment of the Green Room. I'm happy to move that proposal. Do I have a seconder?
Happy to second.
Thank you. All those in favour, please. Unanimous, lovely. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you. Stop the recording. It is going to be recorded though, is it?
It is being recorded, but we will
stop.
Keep it, and we will just delete it off the end.
You can just stop recording, couldn't you? Just in case. Just
I think
mindful.
as a backup in terms of making it
help for the minutes.
Yeah. Well,
Did you know that with the new Teams facility you have, it makes notes? If you notice at the top there, notes, it's